Tommy Curran, how are we doing this week?
Tremendous. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm a little intrigued by some of this DeAndre Hopkins news. It seems that things could be trending in the right direction. He's been here for a day plus. What are you hearing on the Hopkins front?
Boy, that really sounds like a development, too, honestly, to interject with what you just mentioned, because why would DeAndre Hopkins post something like that on social media and say, hey, he's not going to say, hey, I'm stringing teams along out here. So I think that's a positive development. And, what I hear is the team is, I think people in the building are still wary to an extent of the culture fit. I mean, how much does he want to practice? What kind of hoops are the Patriots themselves going to have to jump through to accommodate the way he likes to approach the game? But to me, if you watched OTAs this week or the minicamp, you could blatantly see that the optimism that I had about the on-paper potential is pretty much dashed by watching what they put on the field.
What did you see on the field that dashed that optimism, Tom?
No disrespect, but Raleigh Webb, Ed Lee. I mean, they were down into, when their second group got out there, it was Kendrick Bourne, Devontae Parker. There was no Tyquan Thornton, no Juju Smith-Schuster. So you were into guys who have either not contributed in the NFL or basically off the street, as Ed Lee from Rhode Island was. So to me, you're looking at that group and you're like, okay, well, the defense looks great, but what kind of a look is the offense giving them right now? And what kind of an opportunity does Mac Jones have right now to get good reps? They just didn't have enough receivers. Even Kayshon Boutte was down this week as well. So, Malik Cunningham was getting meaningful reps. He's just converting from quarterback to wide receiver. So I wasn't a huge DeAndre Hopkins guy previously, and now reality is kind of setting in.
Yeah.
And urgency is setting in.
Yeah.
And you got to win 10 or 11 games, Bill and Mac and everybody. You got to.
So, Tom, do you have a sense of what the Patriots are trying to figure out with DeAndre Hopkins on this 2-day visit? Fourier, I heard say, this isn't a recruiting trip. This is not them pitching DeAndre Hopkins, and they're not going to work him out to figure out any health questions, answers to health questions they might have. So what are they doing here?
My guess is it's a fit visit. It was interesting when Mike Vrabel said, look, we're not interested in anybody who's not interested in us. So I think the Patriots could probably afford to be a little bit more strenuous in showing their appreciation and desire. But I think that, the Patriots are going to say, here's how we're going to do things. Here's the offense. Here's the role that we see you fitting in with us. Do you want to do this? Here's the money we're going to give you. So I just don't think it'll be a hard sell in which they're saying you're our missing piece. But I do think, and we'll do anything to bring in, but I do think that they'll say, look, you're a piece that's going to make everybody better here.
Tom, if Juju Smith-Schuster miraculously heals, do you think that will cool the Patriots' potential interest on Hopkins? Do you think there's a correlation there between Schuster suddenly not being available for OTAs and this big 2-day visit here from Hopkins?
No, I really don't. I think Smith-Schuster is a slot. He's a huge man at this point. Looks more like an H-back than a wide receiver to me. So there is very little overlap. I think it's more the Patriots are looking at, okay, we have a bunch of question marks. We had one of the lowest separation rates in the league. Our most productive wide receiver went elsewhere, and he didn't separate either. So what can we do to get better now? And I think the Patriots ask themselves that every year at the end of this period of time. Once the off-season, to an extent, the player acquisition period starts to end, they say, okay, who is still out there that can help make our team better? And DeAndre Hopkins sticks out like a sore thumb.
So I think Hopkins is the kind of move that would get fans excited and to buy in, because basically nothing happened in free agency. Like, really, for 2 years in a row, nothing happened in free agency. I know you like the Bill O'Brien edition, Tom, and maybe fans can clamor around that. But this is the kind of move that could get them on board. I've been asking all day, and we've been kicking this around, like, what is there to be optimistic about and look forward to with this Patriots team? Because it is a lot of, it's 7.5 wins in Vegas, and the weapons aren't all that great, and it's Ed Lee and Raleigh Webb on the minicamp field. Like, what is there to be excited about from a Patriots fan perspective? And, that buzz with Hopkins, I think, would help satiate Kraft if he's trying to get fans gassed up and excited for stuff like that.
Yeah, I think you've heard Robert Kraft say a number of times now, we had a good draft. We think we're a good team. We should be much improved. Bill O'Brien's back. But we have a very hard division. There's always a caveat attached to it that he's almost tempering his own expectations. But I agree with you. I mean, we've talked innumerable times, and I've talked about, look, they have pass catchers. They have guys on offense who can produce. But I think light is dawning on my own marble head that I'm probably putting too many chips on the potential of Tyquan Thornton based on last year's camp. He's 6'1", 111 pounds. Juju Smith-Schuster is hurt. Devontae Parker has not been productive for 3 or 4 years now in the NFL. So I think that DeAndre Hopkins, for instance, I tend to be optimistic in the offseason. My optimism was drained away a little bit. I do think Mac Jones is going to have a very good year. The offense is going to be better. But you can't be going off the field constantly on 3rd and 4 and having it look like 3rd and 14 because nobody can get open. You have nobody to really throw to. So there's no question that the enthusiasm would rise in a way that might not even be commensurate with the difference he can make. Because if Trent Brown comes spilling in at 411 pounds, that's an issue.
Yeah, Tom, you and Phil Perry talked at length about Trent Brown and the little bit that you saw from him in that second day of minicamp. I'm just going to ask you straight out, what is the likelihood that Trent Brown is on this team when the season starts the way that things are going with him?
I would say 80% because they desperately need him. But there does come a tipping point, Mego, where, okay, we need Trent Brown that we signed and count on. We don't need a Trent Brown who is not in shape, unable to finish practices, or a drain on our new offensive coordinator, new offensive line coach, and developing quarterback. The hard part of it is you're in pretty deep because you don't have any depth on the offensive line, particularly at the tackle spot. And it's funny because, you know, we've had this conversation before about Patriots culture and Belichick bending to the will of players more readily. I do remember in 2001 the hoops that Bill Belichick jumped through to try and make sure that Terry Glenn was a part of the team were inordinate. Eventually it didn't happen, but Bill will jump through hoops if it is the difference between winning, losing, job security, and a much more tenuous situation if you go 7-10.
Tommy, how surprised do you think the team was by the Lawrence Guy holdout, and how do you envision that thing resolving itself?
I don't know. I honestly, I swear to God, Christian, I haven't reflected on it very much. You know, Bill was kind of blasé about it. A few years ago when Lawrence Guy hit free agency, the Patriots made him an offer. He said, you know what, I'm going to go see what's out there. Didn't find anything out there. By the time he came back, the offer that he had been afforded had been cut. So he hasn't been too psyched about his rate of pay for a couple of years. So why it hit a tipping point now, I don't know, but apparently it did. Can the Patriots live without him? I like him. I think he's been a good contributor, but I do think that they could live without him, unfortunately, for Lawrence Guy. So I think it's more of a mosquito situation as opposed to a bee.
Can I want to squeeze in one more question here, Tom, because I heard you guys on the Patriots Talk podcast, and this caught me as very funny, and it was just kind of an aside that you and Phil had quickly, but what was Joe Judge experimenting with the other day at minicamp?
So they're punting, and they had the short man, who was the other punter, the rookie punter, ahead of the veteran punter, whose name right now is escaping me. Unfortunately, he's been pretty good.
But they have two punters lined up behind the formation, effectively.
And the short punter was grabbing them and basically doing quick kicks. It was just, what is the purpose of that? It's like, I don't get it. And, you know, with all of these guys who have tasted the riches of being a head coach, if there's any way that you can innovate, any way you can, Joe Judge has revolutionized the punt game in New England. You don't know who's going to kick it.
Well, now we know what all those meetings were about, and now we know Bill probably said, hey, well, we've worked on the short punts. Maybe we'll just scrap the last day of minicamp. Now that we've covered this new ground, maybe we're done.
Dust off the mortar kick, baby.
All right, he is Tom E. Curran of NBC Sports Boston. Check out the Patriots Talk podcast. Check him out on NBC Sports Boston, and check him out next week when he joins us again. Tom, thanks so much.
Thank you, guys. See ya.